Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock on the start of your Tuesday morning. Hope you're off to a great start, having a great day. And thanks for joining us. We are glad that you're part of our Second Cup crew.
Happy Tuesday, Cuppies.
Happy Tuesday. Okay, a couple of things we want to talk about this morning. Number one, we are tracking the remnants of what was Hurricane Beryl. And tomorrow it's going to be a huge problem for us. So we'll talk about that in a second. Number two, we want to hear from you. Are you a stay-at-home parent? Because it turns out a lot of people, women in particular, are leaving the workforce to stay home. We've been talking about this for years, but now we are seeing statistics show that the number of women leaving the professional life to stay at home with their children has gone up significantly.
So my question is, were you a stay-at-home parent? And then let's take that a step further. If you were, back in the day, maybe you've got kids in their 20s, something like that. Do you think you could do that today with the way the economy is right now? Because I do think those are two pretty different times.
Yeah, I agree. Frankly, I don't think a lot of people could just stay home.
I think it's a lot. I think, like you're saying, a lot of people are. And part of the reason we talk about is childcare, because those costs have gone up. But I do think that if there's a lot of people that are like, no, even with childcare, we'll figure something else out. Right. We'll either pay for it or we'll, go with friends, family, or figure something out because we can't afford to not have two people working.
So a couple of things here. Well, maybe we should touch on Beryl first and then come back to that. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. Let's let people
simmer on that
and add their comments, because then we'll have them to pull up. Yeah.
Okay. I want to bring in the weather computer here, John, just so going on here. In terms of Beryl, you're looking at its path. It is in Texas and has really significantly impacted parts of the southeastern part of that state. The reality of Beryl is that it was once like a Category 4 storm, I believe.
Yeah, when it was really last week when you were gone, we were really tracking its path when it was going through like toward Cancun, through the Caribbean. Yeah, it really left a lot of destruction.
Well, now it's hitting Texas as a Category 1. It's no longer a hurricane at this point. But when you take a look at that path, and this is just a zoomed in spot about where Beryl actually is now.
Yeah, take a look at where it heads, though.
Yeah,
you get an idea.
It's coming right for us here in Western New York. So tomorrow and Thursday, we are expecting to see a lot of rain. Heavy rain is what Aaron is saying.
Tropical moisture, if you will.
And then he was also telling us that we could expect to see some possible tornadoes. A slight chance, realistically, in southern parts of Western New York, and then up through Erie County and other parts of the area.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. It's not zero. It's like 5% in McKean and Potter County in southern Western New York, and like 2%
We
here.
get these small risks of tornadoes every now and then during the summer, right? We've seen tornadoes here before. So small risk, but just know that it exists, and especially know you're going to be seeing a lot of rain tomorrow.
The problem with all that rain is that it's coming at a total of up to 3 inches in some places.
Like, it's coming quickly, and it's going to be there. So if you've got like a creek behind you that floods, if you know your sump pump has issues, if your basement might take on water, these are all things to think about today before
so you're
tomorrow.
ready.
Yeah.
I said it this morning, and I'll say it again. This is a great time to download our WKBW app. So Aaron is really good about sending out push alerts. So if you download our WKBW app, you can actually select, I think, weather in the alerts that you actually want to get. And if there's nothing else that you get, so be it. But at least you know that you're getting constant updates about the weather, especially with all of this rain.
Well, get the news ones too, just so you see all the good stories we do.
Danielle wondering, should we tie down the pool floats? Maybe take them out of the pool, Danielle.
Well, you're not going to be using the pool tomorrow, Danielle. The pool's getting a little extra water tomorrow. Oh, my gosh.
Okay, let's talk about, Connie, welcome to my world in Florida.
No kidding.
Let's talk about daycare this morning. A lot of women are leaving the workforce and they are becoming stay-at-home moms. We spoke to one mom who basically said she was left with $400 in her bank account after dealing with children, childcare, paying her bills.
Right.
And
so she works all month, right?
Comes home with nothing.
Comes home with $400 at the end of the month after she pays for childcare. Her question then became, is it worth it? Is it worth it for me to work 40 hours a week and send my kids to daycare? Let's be real, where they do catch a million sicknesses. They're going to catch them at some point, right? But they're catching a million sicknesses, bringing them home. You're going to work. Now you're, is that all worth it? Or do I just say, forget the $400? If we're basically breaking even, do I just stay home?
Okay, so the number of stay-at-home moms in 1999 was at an all-time low, 23%. And, I almost feel like these statistics, to be honest with you, are totally outdated because we have up until 2012 where we now know about 30% of women say that they are stay-at-home moms. Frankly, here we are in 2024. We are 12 years past where this graph ends. And I would say that it's probably a higher amount than 30%.
And childcare is more expensive. I mean, when you realistically think about this woman, she was a teacher. So she's making a teacher's salary and she was coming home with $400 at the end of the month after she paid for childcare.
Right.
So expensive.
Okay, so listen to this. Care.com says the average rate for childcare in Western New York is about $18 an hour. So if you are paying $18 an hour, $17.60 an hour for your child to be in childcare, and you're using childcare, you're using daycare 40 hours a week, that totals to about $2,200 a month.
It's expensive.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And not many people are making
enough to be not only, so that's $2,200 just for that.
Right.
On top of that, you're paying for your house, your apartment, your car,
food,
your groceries.
You're paying for, in this case, 3 children.
Any entertainment that kids need, right? Or anything that they need. Like, it gets expensive.
Kathy, good morning. When my daughter has a baby, I'll be watching my grandkids. Howard says, when my kids were Howard. When my kids were young, wife and I worked opposite shifts, had some family help. These days, I'm not sure it's worth it with the high cost of childcare. My daughter is excited. The granddaughter goes to kindergarten this year, and it relieves the cost for them, right?
Kristen says we couldn't do it 20 years ago when her kids were little, so we definitely couldn't do it now. She's talking about going home and being a stay-at-home mom.
Amanda says this summer camp is very expensive for kids. So what are you supposed to do with them when there's no school? School is kind of like that built-in daycare for a lot of parents.
Yep. And so a lot of people do send their kids to like summer programs because they need it. Sarah says, my mom stayed home. I think it made me and my sisters better people, but I know she sacrificed her career.
Right. And I think that's the one thing with this woman that we spoke to in Orchard Park. She says she had to make that difficult choice. Yeah. Does she stick with her career as a teacher, something that you work for your entire life, right? Like you build up to this, point in your life where you have, felt like you made it. You're well into your career, and then you kind of give it all up. I don't know. It is hard. It's a difficult decision to make. But look, I get it because I agree. Your children are better off with some form of influence rather than just being home.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, first off, you can't just leave little kids home, like little toddlers. Right. Bye, guys.
I wish my mom was able to stay home. The reality is she couldn't.
Yeah. And that was back in the day.
Right.
Back in yonder year. Megan says, my husband and I, she's got it figured out here. We work 2 different shifts. We have different days off. So we only need daycare 3 days a week. That's nice, Megan, that you could figure something out like that.
That is nice. Mallory, good morning to you. I think this is the first time we're hearing from you. Glad you're with us on Second Cup. We were paying damn near $380 a week, and our kids were being physically abused. Think about that. The higher the dollar amount doesn't get you quality of care, obviously. See, and I think that's an exception. I don't think that that's the rule by any means.
No, but you had a bad experience
here is
what you're saying.
At a high rate. My mom chiming in here, after we moved to Long Island, it was less expensive for me to stay home than commute to the city, New York City, for work. But eventually she went back to work and she just had to.
Yeah. Okay, wait, listen to Amanda's. I love working. It would be hard to be a stay-at-home mom. It's a huge job. I love being a mother, but get ready in the morning, get to the grind, makes me happy.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Kelsey is saying. Love my children to death, but I need to go to work. I need a conversation with someone that doesn't involve if they use the bathroom or not, and if it's a new Paw Patrol episode or not. We love our childcare provider. We're paying about $250 a week, figuring it out. We're at $12,000 a year for part-time daycare. Wow. She says it's well worth it, though. So Kelsey's an EMT, so she's doing God's work here for a lot of people. And I'm sure the conversation about going to the bathroom also happens in your job, Kelsey.
Yeah, right. No kidding. Kelsey's like, I get to leave my kids. You talk about it. Go to work.
Howard, my mom and dad worked at GM different shifts. We rode to work with dad in the afternoon and waited for mom to come out and rode back home. That was in the 60s and 70s.
Shirley says our kids are grown now, but when they were small, my husband and I worked opposite shifts. Wasn't always easy, but then one of us was home with them most of the time.
Okay, listen to this. Listen to what Maria says. My daughter said her whole paycheck would go to daycare.
So that's what this mom was talking about.
Right. Sarah, good morning to you. Being a stay-at-home mom is 2 full-time jobs, right? Because, you know, let's say a full-time job is 8 hours, 40 hours a week.
Right.
You know, you're doing that and then some with your children if you're there, you know, and theoretically, maybe they're up 16 hours a day and you're kind of watching them and caring for them all that time. That's a lot.
Carol says, my daughter was lucky to have me watch her son starting at 6 weeks, and I'm still watching him at 11. Before him, I watched my cousin's kids. Now, that is amazing. If you've got somebody in your life who can like help out,
it takes a village.
Step in, play that role. Like if you've got a mom, if you've got friends, family, like that's awesome.
Here's a good question from Parker's Pit, and maybe this is something that we can kind of all crowdsource here.
Oh boy.
What would be a good age to leave your children home alone?
First off, I think most parents would say it depends on the child, because you're going to have some kids where you'd be like, they're probably good at like 11 or 12, 11 maybe for a little bit to like be home alone for a little bit. I'm not talking about all day. But then there's some older kids where you'd be like, maybe they need to be like 14.
I'll tell you,
I
was so afraid to stay home alone.
Were you?
Yes. I don't even, like, I think until about like 14, like high school, I was super afraid to stay home alone. I just didn't love it.
I wasn't. I was babysitting by the time I was 14.
Yeah, I did not like it.
But I was like, and I don't know why. That's kind of weird because you're pretty responsible too. But I was like Miss Responsibility. Like, you know, I was following every rule that I was told. Like I wasn't doing anything that I wasn't supposed to be doing. And so then that translated to babysitting too. Like if they were supposed to be in bed at a certain time, they were in bed at a certain time. So
we also just didn't have an alarm in my house. And I was really concerned.
That's what scared you?
Yeah. And I also don't like loud noises. So when we did get an alarm, I was like, what if the alarm goes off?
That was even worse. Right?
Yes.
The fear of the alarm.
Oh my gosh. I was a mess as a kid. But I wonder though, I mean, what is, and honestly, I do think it was because of Home Alone. So it's one of my favorite movies, but I am fairly certain it's because of the Wet Bandits.
Howard's got grandkids who stay home. 15 is the oldest, and the other two are 18 to 14. See, that's another, or 8 to 14. If you've got one older kid too, as long as they're not, and I think most parents would agree with this, too close in age.
Sure.
Because too close in age, then you're just fighting the whole time, frankly.
Kelly says 11 is the legal age to be left alone for a couple hours. I didn't know there was a legal age.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, but 11 was in my mind. Like, I feel like.
Let's Google that.
I feel like that's when I was comfortable. I think my parents were okay with it. Shirley says, boy, this topic has certainly made for a lot of discussion. It really has, hasn't it, Shirley? I think Shirley chimed in on my Facebook post too, by the way. Thank you, Shirley. Was that you?
Okay, so according to the Office of Children and Family Services.
It was Sheila, sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go on.
There is no law that states a legal age to leave your children home unattended.
Okay.
They leave it up to the discretion of the parent or guardian. So interesting, but you know, I guess it really all depends on the maturity of the child that you're leaving or how responsible they are, to your point.
10 is a little bit young to me when I think about the kids that I know. 10, I feel like 11 is, but I would not leave them alone for a long time. And I don't think most people would either.
Melly, I wonder, maybe you can chime in here because I know that you've got a teenager here, a 13-year-old, I believe. Like, at what point did you start leaving Austin home alone? And, you know, when you're talking about 10 years old, I mean, that's like, my niece Alana is 8.
Yeah.
I wouldn't leave her
10
alone.
10 is too young, I think. But 11 or 12, like maybe for like, you know, 45 minutes while mom runs somewhere.
Okay, so Melly, at 13, I still don't keep him home alone. See, I think it all depends.
Yeah, I think it depends on the kid too. I really do. Like, first off, are the parents comfortable with it? Is the kid comfortable with it? Everybody's got to be okay, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did. So legal age, Michelle says, to babysit in New York is 13 years old.
No, I did take the babysitter's Red Cross course.
Of course you did.
I had all my certifications by the time I was ready to come to your house and watch your child. I presented my CPR certification.
Diane says, my kids back in the day when it was safer were home in elementary school. They were home an hour, but had to call me when they got home from school.
I think that happened to a lot of kids. Yes. Like maybe your mom was a teacher or maybe your mom could get out of work at like 5, the bus dropped you off at 3:30, 3:45, so you had like an hour and a half.
So Renee says Gen X kids were babysitting at 8 or 9. Those are the baby boomers at this point, right? Or
No,
the
those are
generation after?
that's a generation before us.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it was
So
baby
after the
boomers,
baby
Gen
boomer,
X,
yeah.
then millennials, then Gen Z.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was a latchkey kid. My mom will hate that I said that because I have made sure that she understands that I was a latchkey kid.
Yeah. It's not the first time you've brought it up.
She gets very upset. But it's true.
Well,
I mean,
what was she supposed to do?
she's supposed to stay home and not go to work.
Oh my God.
It's just, I'm just kidding, Jan.
He was a latchkey kid, Jan, and I know he had the finest taste as a latchkey kid. So, like, you can't have the best of both worlds, Edward.
I know. But my grandma and my grandpa were always with us. They would often pick us up from school, and they were kind of like our village.
I gotta tell you too. Well, see, and that's different then. You had your grandparents too. You weren't alone all day, Edward.
Well, we would often let ourselves in. Like, we had our own key to the house, and that was like a cool step for us.
But then grandma and grandpa came over.
Eventually.
Made sure you weren't killing each other.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, I mean, I know I started babysitting when I was like 13 or 14. Sometimes now, though, I look at 13 and 14-year-olds and I think about if I had a baby and I'm just like, absolutely not. Like, I want an adult human there, like an actual adult human.
Perspective, right?
Even though, right, perspective, because now I'm so much older. Like, even now, like, I'll watch my friends' kids and it's a lot of work. And I'm like, makes me nervous.
I'm telling you, we were
younger teenagers.
There were 3 of us last week with 3 kids.
One-on-one? You had a one-on-one, okay.
And Rosalie. And Rosalie's having a great day. Alana's talking her ear off. And Adriana's just doing her own thing. But I left Andrea's house last week and I needed a nap. I was exhausted.
It's just really funny to me how kids seem younger. Maybe it's just as you get older, kids seem, and I'm sure like there's always going to be kids who like, you've known the kid your whole life, you know how mature they are. Okay, they're 14, you leave them with your kid. But it's just so different perspective wise.
Parker Spit, can Alexa be the babysitter? Yeah, probably. It's like Google. The iPad's the babysitter nowadays. Melly, Rosalie's adorable. She's hilarious. She's so funny. Kathy says a lot of kiddos middle school age from school have their house keys so they can get in their home after school.
Yep.
Right. And then Lauren just kind of puts the period at the end of the sentence. Kids are exhausting.
Can we just pull this comment up really quickly? Jason Toriano.
Oh, hello, Jason Toriano. Good morning to you.
I don't have kids, so I don't have much to contribute here, but I must say I love Second Cup. It's like a 716 version of The View, and I am here for it. Thank you.
Jason, great to have you along. We really appreciate it.
Longtime viewer, first-time commenter.
Jason, let me ask you this. How much stress do you have? Maybe you can contribute to this conversation.
Oh, I know he can't.
A lot of people are very concerned about health, the economy, and making money. Good luck making anything nowadays because, well, they're just not paying. And if they are paying, you're not making...
You're putting it out to childcare.
Thank you. Or you're just paying it someplace else because inflation is so high and everything is much more expensive these days. It's hard.
Okay, so this whole stress study turns out the most stressed city in the country, according to this study, is Cleveland.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
It is kind of interesting.
Rust Belt city.
Yeah, exactly. Very similar to Buffalo.
But here's why, though.
We're at number 50.
There were key factors here, including finances, the workplace, family, health, and crime.
Health is a huge stress factor.
I agree. And so is crime. When you look at things that are affecting this year's election, the economy, crime, immigration,
finances, crime. Yep. So I'm seeing exactly those things that you're saying here. Yeah.
So these are things that are stressing Americans across the board in daily life and in future political life as well. 3
in 5 people say they don't talk at all about their stress because they don't want to be a burden to others.
Well, thank you for that to those of you who don't talk about it.
I'm one of the 2 in 5 because I talk about it all the time.
I know. I have
got news for you. You're one of them too.
So you got the 2 of us here.
Yeah, just like.
Michael says, I feel so bad for families that need both parents to work to live comfortably. Talking about our last conversation. Anita says taxes are her biggest stressors sometimes. Maria says scammers cause stress, especially nonprofit organizations that scam people.
Scammers do cause a lot of stress. It's the worst. I hate to see stuff like that happen to people.
Me too. It's the taking advantage of people that really bothers me.
So often they feed and go for like your goodwill. And you just hate
Right.
that, right? Because then it just makes you want to do that less, but it's the worst.
Melly says stress is so real. Legit just learned so much about how stress really affects. So what did you learn and how do you deal with it, Melly? Howard says stress is self-driven. Only you can control it. I agree with that actually 100%.
Stress is self-driven.
And here's why I've figured that out. I have decided, and this came on vacation when I had zero stress. The only thing I was worrying about was, what am I drinking today? It is so...
Please tell us your realization.
I had this
tell us your epiphany.
Like the clouds open, the light shines down, and I'm like, Heavenly Father, thank you so much.
And you decided what?
It's not worth it. It's not worth worrying about the nonsense, and I'm not going to let it affect me anymore. So it is what it is.
There are some things that you can say that about, right? But other things like you are just going to have to worry about. Like, I'm sorry, like health being on one of these things. Like, I can totally see, like, if you've got a test coming up, if you've got something in the back of your mind, like that's health related, that's a hard stress to get rid of. Now, I'm kind of thinking, just throwing this out there.
Go for it.
You're thinking toward a work concept.
Oh, 100%.
Where you're thinking, I'm imposing these deadlines on myself. I'm giving myself undue stress at work. Like, I need to recognize it's just part of my life and not my whole life.
Well, and then how you bring it home, I think, also affects your life as well, because you leave work and it's easier said than done to leave work at work.
Yeah, when you bring it home with you in the form of this.
Or when you're kind of just constantly dwelling on things. Like, it is so unhealthy. Really.
Wanted to answer Marguerite's question quickly. At times. At times.
Well, I mean, here I am.
Okay.
Take me or leave me.
And sometimes I want to take you, and sometimes I want to leave you. At times.
Suck it up, Buttercup, is what Lori says. So I asked Melly the question, how do you handle the stress? She says, I'm trying self-reflection to lower some stressors unable to be avoided. Yeah, it is hard to just leave work at work.
Yeah.
But I think if we continue the mentality of I'm here for a paycheck and I go home and live my life.
Yeah.
Then what's there to worry about? I've got a job. I'm doing what I like. And at the end of the day, I get to go home to my husband.
Exactly.
Though I do wish the air conditioner was a little cooler.
I do just want to bring up Mallory's point, too. She's got a 14, 11, and 5-year-old, coming back to her older conversation, that her older two, 14 and 11, are really mature for their ages. Listen to this. They have an escape route that they practice weekly. 3 of them are familiar with routes to get out of our house in case of emergency. She feels like a lot of people don't do that with their kids. And obviously, their 5-year-old doesn't stay home alone. Yeah. She says, but we have grandparents and family members. But that, I just thought, is a really good point. Because maybe that is something to think about. We used to laugh when I was growing up because next to us lived a Taekwondo master. And I am not kidding you. Master Chong was our neighbor. Like, you might have seen Master Chong. You may have seen Master Chong's Taekwondo around Western New York. He was our neighbor growing up. And we used to laugh because my parents would say, if anything ever happens, go to the Chongs.
No kidding.
Because he was like, you know, they were so nice, and he was going to deal with anything that was happening.
Lauren, talking about stress, says, I'm starting to learn not to let others affect me and give me added stress. Yeah. You know, you've got to be able to draw that boundary.
Kathy's talking about something. Remember we were saying today, what do you do for stress relief? She draws, paints, and reads. I love coloring sometimes.
Melly does too. She has those dirty coloring books. Do you know what I'm talking about? She posts on Facebook all the time. Richard says,
they're not dirty coloring books.
Oh my God, they're filthy. The sayings are just...
They're like... They're naughty word coloring books,
yes.
Right? Like bad words. But like a dirty coloring book, I'm picturing like... Anyways.
Richard, sometimes work takes over home life and not enough time at home because of too many hours and days working to make enough money. Yeah, I mean, it's all like a cycle, isn't it?
Melly's clarifying. They are adult colors.
Yes, indeed they are.
They're adult colors. That is
not dirty.
Right, a dirty coloring book sounds like, oh my God.
She's filthy. Listen, we got to get the show on the road. We're glad that you're with us for Second Cup. It's always a good time, no matter what day of the week it is.
No matter what topic we land on.
Seriously.
And it's always something. We'll always find something fun to talk about.
Tomorrow we'll have Aaron on because we know it's going to be one of those really heavy rainy days. So he'll be able to track the rain for us and let us know what the deal is.
Very good. We'll see you guys then.
Have a great day.
Bye.